Hey, what's up? So, Kelly, you're doing a review of your Kubota. So, I felt like I needed to bring out the big guns and do the 44-year review of the John Deere 510. I think it's a D, it might be a C, uh, backhoe. And I'll flip this camera. Here it is in all its glory. Kelly likes to call this sucker Big Ben, because it is a big sucker. It's super heavy and you know, really powerful actually for an old machine. um, so after 44 years, let's see what let's start with the good, I guess. So this thing is super powerful. It has an extend-a-hoe on it that comes off of the stick, and this extend-a-hoe comes out, I think it comes out right here, and basically you could dig a hole that is, I don't know, probably like 20 feet deep, super deep. And I've used the extend-a-hoe quite a bit with framing, with lifting my walls. I literally frame the walls and then would lift them up and put them down over the J-bolts. The bucket on this, the nice thing about this bucket, I think it's like a 2-foot bucket. So really good for trenching, like utility trenches. What else does it have here? It has this sweet seat that's, you know, kind of worn out. Let's see here. The front bucket, I think it's like over 6 feet wide, and it can lift just about anything. Super powerful for you know, if you need to transfer dirt around. It's really good, especially on a project like mine. It's not a big project here, so moving dirt and digging trenches, it's great. It's also great for lifting. If you have heavy objects to lift, you can lift it with the front or the back if you need to get something up higher. I think the front has a 13, I think it gets up to 13 feet, and then the rear digger, I don't know, I'm actually not sure what that gets up to. I've gotten it up above 14 feet, so it probably gets way up there, especially with the extend-a-hoe. So that's all the good. Let's go with the bad now. Yeah, just about every joint is worn out. Everything's pretty loosey-goosey. Sometimes I'll be driving and the steering wheel will fall off. So that's a little bit unnerving. Yeah, the seat has lost some leather. It's growing some moss. These cylinders leak. This is a new leak on this guy right here. And so it loses pressure, and so everything drops. All the hoses are worn out, as you can see. I'm just waiting for them to explode one day. This cylinder for the boom, the barrel of it has a crack here that leaks pretty bad. I'm waiting for that to go one day. The one thing about these machines, if you ever try to replace the boom cylinder, it's a pain in the ass, because this boom is one solid piece of metal. So I had a really bad leak, and it was leaking so bad I just couldn't use the machine. So I had to repack the cylinder, and you have to lay the boom out and then remove the cylinder. I'm not really a mechanic, Luckily my uncle has a huge shop with some large sockets for this sucker, because you're gonna need that to work on this machine. So if you don't really have a huge shop with every tool you could ever imagine, then maybe not the most practical rig for you. What else went wrong with this? This extender hoe is pretty badass, but I think it puts a lot of pressure on the boom and stick, so I try and use it sparingly. The bucket on the digger is great, but it's if you want to dig anything smaller than a huge trench, then not very useful. Let's see here. Grading. I've tried to do some grading. I'll walk around my house here in a second and you can see, but it's not the best for grading. Just because if you're on a slope, it's really hard to get an even grade. And I think the instruments aren't. It's not like using a skid steer where it's just it feels tight and it feels smooth. This thing is loosey goosey and bumpy and it's just not very accurate. I actually got it in so close to my house once because I didn't have another machine to use, so I was trying to grade some ground out, and I actually put a hole through my sheathing with the corner of the bucket. So I was pretty mad that time. I drove it out to the end of the road and parked it for a couple days. What else? This engine, the one thing I do like is, I don't know what kind of diesel engine this is, but this thing is so powerful and it seems to run really well after 44 years. It had been sitting for 10 years and I wanted to use it to build my house, so I it wasn't running, so I put a new starter in it, and got the new starter in it. Started right up. Somebody had punctured the oil cooler up front. Where is that oil cooler? I think it's over on the other side. Somebody had punctured the oil cooler on this thing. This guy right here, and so it was shooting oil back over into the engine. You can see there's a lot of oil and everything still. But I was just worried that something was going to catch on fire. So I got a new oil cooler. It's hard to find parts for these machines. And I found mine from a scrap yard, which was actually saved me a lot of money, because I went to, I'm trying to think of that company that is kind of one of the major suppliers for parts for industrial equipment. And they wanted like $500 for this oil cooler, and I ended up finding it from a, is it Pape or Pape? How do you pronounce that? That was the company. They wanted a lot of money, and I ended up finding it from a little company out of Oregon. They sent it up to me, and so got a new oil cooler on there. So yeah, I guess, overall, thinking back now, for such an old machine, I've done a lot of work with this thing, and it's been frustrating at times, because it's too big almost for the project that I'm doing, but it has so much power, so it's kind of a love-hate relationship with this machine. I'll show you some of the stuff I've lifted. So house over here, you can see, I actually can't really see here. Let me get under here. So they're trusses that run the length of this, and I actually, when I bought my trusses, the truss company's boom truck broke down, and they brought them out here, and I pulled them off the truck with the backhoe. I set them down here on the ground in front, and then I lifted them up with I couldn't get them up with the front bucket, but I lifted them up with the the rear boom and got them up on top, and had somebody with a rope to pull them on top of the top plates. So did that. Each of these walls I framed, you know, probably anywhere between 10 and 20 feet in sections, and then I'd lift it up over the J-bolts. So like this wall here, I think I framed it in a section there, and then a section here, and then I would framed it on the deck, and then I would lift it up and then pull it up and set it back over onto the J-bolts. Another thing I did was there's a 38-foot long beam in here, and that wall's 12 feet tall. And so I set the beam, I put a strap right in the middle of the beam, and then I picked it up with the digger end of the backhoe, and then extend-a-hoed it over. So I think that beam's 38 feet by a foot tall, and it's 5.5 inches thick. So it's pretty heavy, but that backhoe did it no problem, which is kind of surprising. I was really nervous about that, but it's just such a powerful machine. And then some of the grading that I've done. Grading's tough. I think some of these guys, they have a lot of experience with grading with backhoes, and they could probably do a pretty nice job. I don't. So this was, I came back and fine-tuned this with an excavator, but I graded most of this portion with the backhoe to begin with. And then I guess the other thing with this backhoe is it's so big that you really got to be careful moving it around. Like here, I can barely get it to this side of the house because there's these trees here that my wife wanted to keep. So it makes this side very inaccessible to get back here and get to this side of the house. And so if you're gonna have backhoe like this, you're always gonna be nervous about running something over or hitting your home. Trying to think of anything else that you should know about this old John Deere that we call Big Ben. I think it's probably worth, equipment's so expensive right now. If you're trying to do something on a budget, you should consider a used piece of equipment like this. I'm probably $1,000 in parts into this thing. It was my grandfather's, and so nobody was using it. But you could find a machine like this probably I don't know if it would even be $10,000, but you could find a machine for maybe $15,000. That would probably be a nicer machine, like a case or something. I would have gotten something smaller, I think, than this, but this is just what I had, so just trying to make do. So, all right, well, that's my review of this 44-year-old John Deere 510. Bye.